there were a lot of ways for me that it could have made a statement I didn't want it to. And in the beginning, when you say yes to a film, everybody agrees to certain things, and you are always shocked to see how it actually turns out. In this instance, I'm pretty pleased with it, but it wasn't without its potential problems. We felt it was very important, and that's why I asked to add some lines, that they be on a search and not just male bashing, not just chasing down guys with excessive gold jewelry and making sure they met their end. It had to be that they were really trying to figure out what their contribution to being victimized was really about. And that's what makes it different from a film where you're just blaming guys. And that was Susan Sarandon, in an interview with her co-star Geena Davis on Reelin' in the Years about their film together, Thelma and Louise. Hello and welcome to Total 90s Recall. I'm Molly.
And I'm Chloe.
And this is the podcast where we are rewatching 90s films and asking ourselves, were these really as good or bad as we remember, or its reputation implies? And today, as you have hopefully pressed play and seen, or as you just figured out, we are very excited to be talking about Thelma and Louise. And we are even more excited because we have our guest, Sarah Asante. Sarah, how are you?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Sarah is a former BBC and UK TV commissioning editor turned script development consultant and founder of Asante Space. She supports writers to build bold, market-ready stories and sustainable careers. Yes! Creative, sustainable careers. I'm adding that part. That was not in her bio. Anyway, and is very passionate about storytelling that centers voice, clarity, and point of view. Sarah, we are so excited to have you. You're the one that suggested Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
When was the first time you had seen this film?
I was about 15 or 16, and it was in my best friend's bedroom. She had one of those huge TVs with the big back, but it was on a really low bench. So we actually watched it sitting on the floor. And we were kind of sitting side by side, but I think as the film evolved, and certainly by the end, we were holding hands. So it was definitely, we were obviously being absorbed and drawn in, and that was our kind of, it was the first time I'd sat and watched with another individual that wasn't a family member. And I don't know what it was about the film. I think loads of people were talking about it, and it had some buzz around it. And it was we've got to get our hands on this thing. We've got to get our hands on this thing. And I think it kept selling out at Blockbuster because, yes, I'm that old. So we got it out on VHS, and we sat and watched it. And I think it was also the first time we'd ever had a couple of hours uninterrupted where someone's mum wasn't calling them to do something. So it was just so, it was such a beginning of the 90s and set the tone for the kind of girl, woman I was becoming. And I didn't know it would do that, which is why it's really stuck with me. So when you guys said we'd love you on the podcast, it's about 90s films, I just thought, what was more formative than Thelma and Louise for me?
Yes. And it was 91. So as you said, like the start of the 90s. What a way to kick it off.
Yeah.
Chloe, what about you? I don't remember. Have you seen this before?
I had seen it, and I probably did see it on TV, probably when it was shown on BBC or ITV or something. And I don't really have any particular memories about it other than just sitting there and seeing it. I'm not even sure if it was something that was just on and I saw it from sort of halfway through. I seem to remember an older family friend being there and him saying something like, "Oh, Thelma and Louise, that's a classic." But I could be amalgamating different memories. But I absolutely love Sarah's story of sitting watching it with your friends. It's kind of the ideal way to watch this film because it's so about friendship.
Yes, especially when you're thinking about the ending, which we won't spoil yet.
Yeah.
For me, this is going to be a very, I hope, maybe a very American experience. TBS is like a, basic cable channel in America. And on the weekends, they just play back to back to back to back films. And Thelma and Louise is how I definitely saw on TBS when I was, I don't know, it had to be like mid 90s by the time I watched it. And for me, it was kind of like little clips here and there. And I do remember, I'm not going to say I grew up in a very feminist household. And I do remember there were maybe comments that it wasn't like my parents were a little concerned about me like seeing it. But one thing I loved is our neighbors. My best friend, she's still my best friend. She's been my best friend since 10 years old. We grew up 3 doors down from each other. And, we were together all the time. And the thing I remember about being Thelma and Louise is it makes me think of my best friend because our neighbors called us Thelma and Louise because we were always like going around. We were getting into not trouble, but like little kid trouble, getting into stuff. And
Molly, were you holding up gas stations and
Yes.
I mean,
robbing
only once,
stores?
just once.
Just this one time.
I mean, who doesn't? You got to do what you got to do.
Do
girls.
something once and the nickname sticks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was going to say that's why Molly's here. She's actually an international criminal.
Exactly.
She's wanted in several states.
I had to flee the country. So let's get to a little bit more about the film. So it was premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in May, and then it was released in the U.S. on the 24th of May, 1991. And then, yes, Chloe, sorry, months later on the 12th of July, 1991 in the UK. It had $16.5 million budget, and it made $45 million at the box office, mostly from the U.S., only about 214 internationally, but it got a lot of BAFTA attention, which we'll get into, probably because of its director, Ridley Scott, which when we're looking at Ridley Scott and his career, this is after Blade Runner, after Alien, and later after this, he would do G.I. Jane, of course, Gladiator. It was written by first-time screenwriter Callie Khouri, who won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. Yeah. It's scores by Hans Zimmer, which I like now, and I don't know about you guys, but when I think of Hans Zimmer, I think like what Interstellar, I think of these big epics, which I guess this is an epic in its way, but Scott and Zimmer would collaborate a lot more times, including Gladiator.
Yeah,
definitely.
You think of classical scores when you think of Hans Zimmer nowadays, don't you? But this has obviously got, I think it's like a slide guitar on it or something.
Slide guitar, banjo. He really went to town. I think it's somebody that's really good on strings who got to use strings in a different way. It felt like he really enjoyed himself on this one.
Yeah, leaned into the Americana of it, definitely. I would say. Starring Geena Davis. So this is after she's won the Oscar for Accidental Tourist. She's been in Beetlejuice. She's been on The Fly. But before, one of my faves, League of Their Own, and A Long Kiss Goodnight. Susan Sarandon after Bull Durham and Rocky Horror Picture Show. And before Lorenzo's Oil, The Clients, and her Oscar-winning Dead Man Walking. We also have Harvey Keitel, Michael Madsen, Christopher McDonald, and of course, a young Brad Pitt. Sweet Brad Pitt.
Babyface Brad Pitt.
Babyface.
Yeah. But not baby body.
Not baby body.
He's all man.
What caught us all off guard.
I wasn't expecting that. I'm going to admit it. Because he looks so skinny under those clothes. And then he has them off, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Oscar nominations, Best Director, Best Editing, Best Cinematography, Best Actresses, both for Davis and Sarandon, which I loved that they kept them both. They didn't put one in supporting, one for lead. They're like
great, yeah.
This is an equal footing film. And of course, screenplay, which it won. BAFTA, Best Film, Direction, Dual Actress again, Screenplay, Cinematography, Editing, and Original Film Score. Few Golden Globes. And as the audience know, I love a good MTV Movie Awards. So it was nominated at the MTV Movie Awards for Best Female Performance for Geena Davis. It was also nominated for Best On-Screen Duo. Sarah and Chloe, who do you think they lost to for Best On-Screen Duo? And these
I
would be for the.
believe they lost. This is devastating news years later.
Think about a 91 film that also, or like an early 90s film. There could have been a sequel. There was a sequel of a duo.
I cannot, for the life of me, think. I feel like this was, because it was so formative and so seismic.
Yeah.
I think it was sort of my film of the 90s. Like, I don't remember much else that was going on. Was it a pair of dudes that won instead of the ladies?
Yep. They lost to Dana Carvey and Mike Myers in Wayne's World.
Oh, you know what?
Okay.
Fair enough.
I should have guessed that because obviously it is one of my all-time favorite films.
Is it? Oh, that's brilliant.
But I think in my head, because obviously I was watching when I was a teenager, so I watched it on TV and then recorded it on VHS and watched it. So I don't really know
what year
that film came out. To me, it's like a kind of early noughties film because that's when I was watching it.
It's eternal for Chloe.
I have got zero resentment about that. Those two are adorable. And the way they revived Bohemian Rhapsody over in the UK and across Europe. let them have it. Good for them.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, this time, this is the guys taking over the girls, but we'll let them have it. That's one time.
Happy for them, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the log line from IMDb: an Arkansas waitress and a housewife shoot a rapist and take off in a 66 Thunderbird. Do you think that's accurate enough, ladies?
It's very potted, isn't it? But I
It's-
guess.
I always joke that the IMDb summary is very perfunctory.
Yeah.
It doesn't get across the tone. You know, I mean, what about classic feminist roads drama in which two women overcome male misogyny and violence
Yes.
and find themselves?
The thing-
That's what I would say.
The thing is, just like Wikipedia, you don't even know who's punched those words in. We're kind of critiquing the hell out of it. But what if it was some junior person at Ridley's production
know.
company?
I
You know,
know.
it could have
probably
actually
was.
come from within the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or like marketing team, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
or AI,
Or AI.
unfortunately.
Not yet.
at this
Not yet.
point.
Give it another year. That's for future movies. Anyway, but why are we've kind of already are getting, why are we talking about this? You know, when this airs, it'll be International Women's Month in March. This year also marks the 35th anniversary of this film.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, it's the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, which is great because we have Sarah, who is a script consultant. Sarah, as a consultant, actually, I want to back up because you used to be a commissioner. And some people, because we have people who are in the industry, but we have a lot of muggles, a lot of people outside the industry, and you hear commissioner, and a lot of people are like, what does that do? So what did you do as a commissioner?
Sure. In the UK, the commissioning editor is the person that decides on what shows get made. So they're the person that greenlights. So for a US audience or a Canadian audience, that's a network executive. So the BBC is a public service broadcaster, the biggest broadcaster that we have in the UK. UK TV is owned by the BBC Group, and it's a digital broadcaster that owns multiple channels. So when I was at the BBC, I was in charge of the genre of comedy, and that went across various channels. And when I was at UK TV, I was a commissioner and developer of scripted, so that broadened out my comedy remit and included drama. So in terms of that word commissioner, you can swap it out for greenlighter.
Yeah.
So I engage with people at various stages of the script journey. So new idea, come in and see me. Let's talk about its suitability for my audience, for my platform, all the above. In the development stage, it's my job to assess it, release some money so that the team are able to shape it, improve it, using the notes I've given to take it to the next level. And at production stage, I sign it off, make sure that everything is in place, the right budget, the right cast, the right director, all of it. And then I just support them along the way. I do a set visit or two, and then I'm in the edit. Sometimes they send you a link and you sign it off with written notes, and sometimes you go and sit in the edit. So you are there real time, piece by piece, putting it all together, and then you watch the final thing. If there's anything that you want to flag, it's my job to know all the Ofcom rules. So how much swearing is in it and at what juncture. If it's a 9 o'clock show, you can't swear within the first 10 minutes. If it's a 10 or 11 o'clock show, different degrees of swear words are allowed, which is very fun. Getting your F's and C's signed off. Do they mention somebody who's died recently? Do they mention someone who's in politics, royal family? All of that kind of stuff I'm scanning and looking out for. I would have been looking out for it on the script. I would have been looking out for it in development, and then I just have to catch it one last time in the edit. So you're there for the entire journey of a script, and it was you that originally saw the promise in the idea and started funding it all the way through.
Wow. That is a lot. And a lot
It
to
is a
keep
lot.
in
It
your
was a lot.
head. Holy cow. Like a lot of that I knew already, but then I'm just like, whoa, I think that's so cool for what it's
Yeah.
worth. But now you've transitioned into a script consultant.
Mhm.
And when we're thinking about something like Thelma and Louise, this was
Yeah.
a first-time screenwriter. How often do you work with first-time screenwriters? And how is that process?
Yeah, it's sort of my specialism. When I joined the scripted team at the BBC, I'd come from a factual and entertainment and working with people as themselves background. So I worked with comics who were as themselves, as a host on something or in a quiz show or things like that. So when I moved to the BBC, it was some of those same comics who now wanted to write a sitcom about themselves or turn one of their silly characters into a more realized world. So when I landed there, a lot of my colleagues already had well-known titles under their belt. So my job was to concentrate on youth programming. A lot of my developments were for BBC Three. A lot of my developments were also short form because we knew that when you're getting first time writers or emerging writers, in order to give them the confidence to keep going, you give them a smaller remit, which is deliver a 8-minute piece, deliver a 10-minute piece,
Mm.
try and get up to 30 minutes. You kind of have to build their confidence over time. We were able to have a new team, a new writer, everyone not knowing what the hell they're doing, and then me kind of guiding them through because the stakes were 8 minutes of footage or the
Yeah.
stakes 10 minutes of footage. I'm really proud of my talent scouting abilities because all of my writers have kind of gone on to have decent careers within the industry, even now, 10, 11 years later. And a couple of my unknown emerging writers went on to win BAFTAs and BAFTA Crafts and RTS nominations and things like that.
Can you tell us some of those names that you've worked with?
Yeah, absolutely. At UKTV, I launched a writers' initiative where I chose 4 pilots to transmit, and one of them was written by a fantastic Northeast writer called Anna Costello. It's called Dead Canny. It's about a girl that has psychic abilities and gets pulled into a murder mystery. Anna's fantastic. Her writing was so good. That piece, a single pilot, went on to win the regional RTS award for new writers. And then when I was at the BBC, I was co-commissioner. So there was a show that was already on the books that had already been commissioned by one of my colleagues called Familam. And because it was sort of an all-black sketch series, it was our kind of what can we do to really put black and brown faces forward? And we figured out different things. And Familam was one of them. And one of the writers who also produced and also composed on Familam, because we're very well known for having the most outrageously cheeky songs on that show, he went on to win the BAFTA Craft for that. And then a couple of years later, one show that came in via YouTube that I backed and really fought for and fought to get made as a pilot was called Dreaming Whilst Black. And it was written and produced by a team led by Ajani Salmon. And Ajani went on to win the BAFTA Breakthrough for that show. And then that show, consequently, just after I left BBC and went to UKTV, that show went on to be co-produced by A24, sold to Showtime in the US, and became the BBC's biggest selling show of 2023. So it's those kind of story journeys and stories that I can kind of point to and say, can't put my finger on what it is. It's very much I know it when I see it. And when I across writers that have a story that I think probably isn't going anywhere because of the market, because of the tonality, the positioning, I'll let them know. But if I see that there's a spark to something, I'll fight tooth and nail for it to get some kind of an airing. So whether that's a table read, whether that's a pilot, or whether that's to a series, I'll always push for people to keep going. This industry is not just the next best idea getting its chance, but also, are you working with people who are reliable? And we've fallen off a cliff in terms of nepotism and cronyism and mates giving all the jobs to mates. But at the same time, you can still use that structure of who's out here working with you, who's vouching for you. You can still use that structure to get somebody's idea across the line, because a Callie Khouri at yahoo.com, that email's not getting opened by anyone. But but Ridley Scott, who's got a Callie Khouri script in his back pocket, oh, please come over here, let's have a look at that.
Yeah.
So it's the strength of relationships that kind of writers learn early. My idea could be great, my writing could be fantastic, but it's only as good as who can get me in a room.
Yeah.
And my whole the whole position of Asante Space and the whole position of what I do now as a script consultant is I've positioned myself as I'm the commissioner you see before your commissioner meeting, or I'm the
Nice.
exec you come and
Yeah.
see before you go and talk to an exec, so that I make sure I I send you out there with all the confidence, all the right understanding about how channels, platforms, audience works, so that you're not stepping on rakes in conversations, that you're not giving away your entire catalogue, first child, mortgage payment, you're making sure that you get the best possible outcome out of your conversations. You don't get fleeced. And how you can judge if somebody is a real champion and gets what you're trying to do, or if they're trying to bend it and shape it and make it more a thing they want to do, how little or how much you should listen to that kind of advice.
Yeah, because I really imagine a film like Thelma and Louise is a film that could have been subject to being bent out of shape, and
Totally.
its mission and its approach could have been really bastardized
Yeah.
in the wrong hands.
Yeah.
And that quote that we had at the top of the show, that thing of trying to shape it so that it is more than just a pulp fiction feminist revenge drama, but is something that's
Totally.
truly led by character. I think Callie based it on her friendship with, I think, another director, Molly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's lived, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
based on her lived experiences. That needs to be upheld so that you get that sense of authenticity through it, because there's been plenty of films of women sort of taking revenge on men, but there's only one Thelma and Louise, basically,
Yeah.
Well,
with
this is
these
it. It's far
characters.
more sophisticated than that because, in the documentary space, there's that series called Snapped, where it's all of these women that are kind of driven to the edge and everyone's sitting there is watching it. It's like, fair enough, I get it.
Yeah.
Who amongst us wouldn't?
Yeah.
Whereas
Exactly.
I found a quote from Ridley, which was really, really pivotal to me. And it's kind of why I think after that point, I didn't care about Alien. I didn't care about Blade Runner as much. And I went back to them because of this film and I carried on forward. And Gladiator has now become one of my favorite films. But the quote from Ridley that really kind of catalyzed my want to follow him and class him as one of my top 10 directors is he recalled that other directors turned it down with one saying, "It's just two bitches in a car." And Ridley's response was, "Why are they bitches? Because they have a voice."
Yeah.
And I thought, what a freaking bullseye retort to that very dismissive, very, oh God, two girls on their period, gone run amok. It was speaking to exactly what Callie said about the industry at the time. In the 80s and 90s, it was nothing but bimbos, whores, and nagging wives. And
Yep.
she was like, I was done with that narrative. I wanted to write people with far more agency. So the fact that Ridley got it and he got that response from other directors, he was like, oh, I don't want to share with you guys. It's staying over
Yeah.
here, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and I think this definitely wouldn't have been made clearly without Ridley, as you already said,
Totally.
because people were passing on it, they weren't getting it, and as you already said, you need a big name because no one knows who Callie Khouri is.
Yeah.
Ridley's producing partner is also a woman, which this isn't like a male bashing show, but like this is the state of the industry.
It's the state of the industry, yeah.
Yeah, and so you have someone like Ridley Scott that's like, no, this is actually a good film. We need to make this. And she even said, Callie Khouri has said, for better or worse, she's like, fortunately and unfortunately, this was the greatest writing experience she ever had,
Right.
because it just consumed her. Like she talks about she woke up in the middle of the night. That scene, which is literally one of my favorite scenes. It's so small, but when they're in the diner and they go to call Thelma's husband to see if he
Oh
knows.
God, I adored that.
It's just
Perfect. Perfect scene.
so
Yeah.
little. And she said, I just woke up in the middle of the night and that just came to me and I wrote it and then I went back to bed. But what I love about that scene is like every woman, I know if my husband's had a bad day, I know his moment he walks in the door and says like, he can
Totally.
just sigh, he can breathe.
The
I'm like, what's
tone
wrong?
of his footsteps has changed. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was interesting. Before this, she was producing music videos. And she talks about how she was just seeing all these people that were getting money to make movies. And she's like, really? This guy? What? No. And I think you said this. She said in an interview with Huffington Post, she stated that adult women are a market that I feel is underserved in the entertainment population at large. I don't see the kind of women represented that I know or that I'm attracted to. I
Right.
really want to try to write more nuanced, less simplistic kind of stuff. And it's hard to find a place to do that.
I mean, I really do feel that she's put herself into that script in terms of what she knows. And those two central performances, you know, from Geena Davis and Susan Sarandon really bring it.
Yes.
Really bring it out. And I believe they contributed to the script, but it is very much the female viewpoint is coming through.
Definitely.
But I think what we often, whenever a film fails its female characters, I often feel that it's because we're not seeing that classic thing of it's failing the Bechdel test. We're not seeing women be women with each other.
Yeah.
And so often when you see a woman who she might be a strong female character, but she's isolated. She's the only example sometimes of her entire sex in the film.
Yeah.
And, you know, we just watched A Few Good Men a couple episodes ago, and we were commenting on the fact that
To me, yeah.
the main female character in that is there's only one of her. And so she has to be all things to all women. And what I like about this film is that these two characters, you know, they have incredible chemistry. It's just off the charts. They're clearly friends, but female friendship is not just one thing. And at times they are bickering. At times, you know, I want to go into it a bit more later, but Louise does blame Thelma at one point, you know, for
I think she's
getting
justified. My hot controversial take is Thelma was a catalyst of a lot of what went wrong, but born of naivete and born of a wide-eyedness. It's sort of, you know, you left your toddler in a room with a gun. What did you think was going to happen? And Thelma running away from her. And she was framed as running away from home. So she had that teenage, you know, new vampire vibe of she was just going to run the streets until the streets ran her kind of thing. And I think Louise didn't blame her enough, and she didn't blame her early. It kind of dawned over time, and that's the kind of the cloak of true friendship is you never see their flaws. And I think that was what was coming through, that Thelma's poor decisions led to a lot of the bullshit.
Yes.
And Louise not immediately blaming her was a sign of true rose-tinted glasses. I love you, so I don't see all your flaws.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting that Louise she often repeats the fact that she thinks that Thelma's marriage is terrible.
Totally.
And so she's always in there with a comment about it. So she obviously feels that Thelma's made this bad decision that kind of frames everything with this awful husband.
Yeah.
But she does move towards this kind of supportive role, and you know, she obviously really supports her when Thelma finally has good sex. You know, they're kind of, you know,
I love that.
Exactly. There's this real kind of, there's shades of grey and there's nuance. But I think just to sort of think about a bit more, because I'm really interested in this question of blame, because I think it's really interesting that Louise, the day after, she does kind of go, Thelma, if you hadn't been dancing and flirting with this guy, he wouldn't have tried to rape you, basically. She basically does blame her for this.
I don't think it was quite that. I think it was more when she said the whole bar saw you dancing with him. So she was very, very careful about framing of blame. So it wasn't all out. We live in a society where if you do certain things, you get the. She was kind of, because of the Texas shadow is what I call it.
Yeah.
There was something very specific about a wound that Louise was carrying around Texas. What happened in Texas? We need to get to Mexico and we're not going through there. How many times did that show touch on Texas? And it's crazy that cut to 35 years later, that because we look at American politics and we see all the headlines, we see that Texas is no place for a woman, right? It's got one of the hardest abortion bans. It's sort of, so there's something that Callie Khouri is almost a soothsayer by, you know, flagging off Texas 35 years ago, and Texas has not beat the allegations ever since.
No, it hasn't.
But that specific blame was around perception. So it wasn't Louise saying, I think you dancing with him led to a thing per se. It was Louise saying, people seeing you on the dance floor rubbing up with him is not going to stand us in good stead when we say, oh my
Yeah.
God, he tried to rip my clothes off. So she was
Mm.
she harshened that to make it a little bit more pointed later, but she definitely
Mm.
started off with, we can't tell the police, hey, it was fair enough.
Mm.
This guy was a horrible monster, because that nuance of date rape or relationship rape or husband rape and things like
Mm.
that wasn't really talked about then. You know,
Yeah.
whatever
Mm.
happens in the bedroom is domestic. Whereas now we can say, oh, if a husband forces themselves on, you know, we've got 2 cases now of men drugging their wives and inviting other men. So
Yeah.
Mm.
we've moved way on in 35
Many,
years how
yeah.
we talk
Yeah.
about this stuff. So yeah, so I think
Absolutely.
I saw it more as, the first critique was about perception. You're not going to be perceived as a victim because you were rubbing up and down on him. And then later on, it was, had you not rubbed up and down on him, we wouldn't be
Yeah.
here. So it was a
Yeah.
continuation of that first thought.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so I think she evolves, doesn't
Yeah.
she, in her
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
And by the end, she says something like, you should know by now that it's not your fault.
Totally.
And I think it also comes within the context of Thelma's guessed that Louise was herself a rape victim.
Totally.
And so I sort of read it as, Louise is traumatized. I mean, as you say, she is avoiding the entire state of
Whole
Texas,
state.
Which is a big state, in
Um,
case no
yeah.
one
which
was
is a
aware.
big
Went
state,
for
and it's
one
in the
toe.
way of Mexico.
Not one toe in
But-
the corner of Texas. Nope.
Exactly. And so but in many ways, I think it's a really realistic portrayal of someone who has been traumatized
Yeah.
and is perhaps left with this question of self-blame.
Yes.
So whatever she lashes out at Thelma,
Yeah.
it's perhaps her questioning for herself,
Totally.
is
It's
there
not
anything
just
I could have
about-
done
Yeah.
differently?
Yeah.
And I guess for me, what I was left pondering was a kind of bigger question of, I wonder, and I'd love to hear your thought on this, Sarah, nowadays, with this kind of complex characterization where we've got an arc where Louise is not as sympathetic as she might be, but, you know, by the end, they're firm friends. Do you think that studios would trust a writer and a filmmaker to have as complex an arc in a film nowadays?
I think so, because we've had a whole conversation around consent now.
Mm-hmm.
I think the word consent was absolutely nowhere near our vocabulary back then when this film came out. And I think that you're watching it through a 2026 lens where a lot of what's said is felt to be out of order. A lot of what's positioned is felt to be out of order. I think that the performances, like Thelma being so childlike. So I get that teenage naivete of how the world is full of wolves and you just don't know it. The age gap between them was very apparent in those earlier scenes. The don't drink too much. Let's go straight to the cabin. It's already late. Okay, let's stop, but just for one drink. Okay, I'm going to the bathroom and then we got to get out of here. She couldn't have been more mum trying to gather the kids on a road trip if she tried.
Yeah.
You know, so Thelma finding herself in a pickle and being outgunned by someone who was far too comfortable doing it. So you've got a sense that he's done it before. And
Yeah.
certainly the waitress knew him to be handsy guy. You know, she was doing a few asides. And then later on in her conversation with the cop, when she's just like, it could have been anyone, he does it all the time. It was real kind of, he's got form, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the way he
He had it coming as well.
had it coming, he's got form. The way he turned was really interesting because he went from, hey, I just want to kiss you, don't be silly, and then boof round the face.
Yeah.
That the
Yeah.
same as Louise's guy. Clears the table, and by the way,
Yeah.
here's a ring. It's like, where's the emotional maturity in these men?
Yes.
You know,
They're
what the
totally
hell?
entitled. Yeah. Well, they see women as objects.
They see
basically.
women as, what do you mean you're rejecting me?
Yes. That's exactly. And also, like, I totally believe both of those scenarios.
Yes, they were so truthful, weren't they?
How many times has a woman been in a scenario where you reject a man who's was nice to you for a moment ago,
For a
bitch?
second. Yeah.
So these are very realistic scenarios, and I think when we're looking at Thelma, I found myself really frustrated with her at times. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is all your fault. But then
Yeah.
I had to like step back and have some compassion for her because she is
You
really
have to.
stuck in time.
Yeah,
She is
you
a
have
child.
to.
She's
Yeah.
been with her husband since she was 14. They
Right.
got married when she was
Married
18.
at 18, yeah. And
Yeah,
you saw
she's-
their house, right?
Yeah.
It's a house of, it's like she inherited her mum's house and changed
Yes.
nothing. It's
Yes.
coupons stuck to the wall. That wallpaper in the wardrobe, I was horrified. That wallpaper in the bedroom lets me know that if the camera had just panned a little bit, there'd be a row of freaking dolls on the wall, would there not? You know,
Yeah.
so you got such a sense, that set direction of her house in particular. Louise's house being meticulous, clean, anally retentively clean. And then Thelma's house, she's the kind of woman a junkyard sale hates to see her come in because she's going home with 10 things.
Yeah.
I just believed, and look at all the stuff she packed for the trip. Ridiculous.
Yes, but that's what like an 18 teenager would
That's
do
what
on a road
teenager
trip,
would
right?
do. I don't know what I'll need. You never know.
Yeah, Louise is very like meticulous and clean. She's putting everything in plastic bags. Whereas like Thelma, that's what I would have done when I was, again, 18, 20.
Really beautifully portrayed.
Yeah, and these are women, their characters are,
Yeah.
it was interesting. This is like the first time women were actually like older than their characters because
Yeah.
Sarandon was 44,
That's
Davis was 30. Davis was 34. And Khouri said that she always imagined them a bit younger, like they were high school friends.
Yeah.
But even still, let's say these women are in their late 20s, early 30s, or they're in their 30s. She's definitely stuck in time. And you kind of have to give her some grace of like, you know, I think about all the stupid stuff I did when I was starting to date, and even just like 18, 19, 20. I mean, we're not going to talk about the fuck boys, girls. But I mean, I did some stupid stuff. And like, I look back on it and it was just because I was young, I was inexperienced, I was insecure. And so you have to give her some grace.
Yeah. I'm 50 watching that, and I have 4 nieces, and I was equal parts annoyed with her decision making, but very, very forgiving, very, oh, sweetheart. It was a lot of, oh, babe, no. Oh, sweetheart. Bless your heart. It was that vibe rather than, you bloody idiot, what the hell are you doing? You know, I think younger me, when I watched it in my 20s, I was like, punch him in the face, rip his eyes out, you know, whereas now in my 50s, I'm like, oh, sweetheart, get out of there, will you? You know, go with your friend to the bathroom. Look at you, you're about to vom. Oh, there's the vom. You know, so the whole time I'm just kind of, she'll figure it out.
But she does figure it out. I mean, there is this point where they almost reverse roles for a little while.
Oh, no, they absolutely did. Callie was very intentional about that.
Yeah.
Thelma, her second misdemeanor, leaving JD in the room with her. The man said, I'm a robber. And after he shagged you, you left him in a room with more money than either of you have ever seen. Come on. He's so annoying.
And he's so pretty.
How could such a beautiful face be such a
but she was
woman?
stigmatized. That's what they call it,
Totally
stigmatized.
stigmatized. When you've had the
way
best sex in
she
your
walked
life.
into the restaurant with that hair, I cackled. My husband was watching it with me on this occasion. We cackled so hard because it was just like, oh, look at the state of this one tossed around a hotel room.
She's had a great night.
A great night has been had by all, you know. And Louise's genuine happiness for her, you finally got laid properly, was such perfectly pitched words. Not, oh, I'm glad you had a good time. Oh, I'm glad you shagged a hot guy. It was like laid properly. So that tells you they've had 1,000 conversations about some terrible Daryl fumbles, you know?
Oh, God. He can't be a good lay.
I know.
So
you see how vivid that imagery is now?
Absolutely. But I mean, a man who stands in his own pizza box.
I mean...
But when Louise discovers the money's gone and she's gone through all this faff to get this money and she's had to go back to Jimmy, who she didn't really want to, and she's had to have a whole evening with him and all of this, she just sort of collapses and she gives up. And that is the moment where Thelma flips, a switch flips in her brain and she seems to go, I have to be the adult now.
Because I caused this.
She caused this problem, this particular problem. And so then she's like, okay, and she learns fast and she just starts to evolve.
Oh, the quick study is what I really adore about her, because she was verbatim.
Yes, she was.
When I saw her really impressed with JD's kind of explanation of how she does it, she was like, well, it's very gentlemanly of you. Like, yeah, I love that you have such flair, kind of thing. It's like, babes, this is not a time to be giving him good critique. Get him out of there. So the fact that she clocked onto, oh, you don't have to be rude to Rob. Interesting. And then wasn't she an absolute sweetheart in her robbery?
Yeah. It is a brilliant moment.
I love how they showed
The
that.
cut to the real footage was
the CCT. It was perfect.
I actually looked that up because I thought to myself, I wonder if that's something that Khouri put into the script.
Yeah, or did Rid come
or
up
is
with that?
it something Ridley? So I looked at the script, and obviously I found it online, so God knows whether or not it is the genuine script.
Yeah.
But it seems to be that what the original plan was, that she starts telling Louise what she did, and then her voiceover is synced with the video footage.
Oh, funny.
So there is that cut.
Right.
But I actually think it's smarter and nicer that it just cuts straight to the video footage of her holding up the store.
But he gave us an extra layer.
Yes.
He didn't just cut to that. We panned across the men's reactions.
Yes.
Those 3 retorts, I remembered them. I was on my sofa and I said it before they said it. It's like, good God, my Lord. You know, it was just like, I remember each and every one of their reactions, and that made me cackle even harder. Is when she asked for the wild turkey, I lost it.
Yeah.
Because
yeah. And he's like, her husband go like, Thelma, like, you just can't believe it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's just so much pleasure to be seen in Thelma letting loose. So yes, of course, she is lamb to the slaughter in many ways. But I think we get a sense that, you know, I think she's the one that says, I've never felt alive until this point. Like, and I think that's the thing, is that her journey, even if it is frustrating for some viewers, I think I didn't really have the same response to her as you did. Because I think I suppose I take it from the point of view of a man could be as outrageously behaved as he likes, and he wouldn't face the same consequences as a woman. And I always place 100% of the blame on the rapist, who is very intentional, you know. But I think nevertheless, you know, obviously we all try to protect ourselves, but she hardens, she becomes this kind of warrior. And by the end, when the two have kind of lured the truck driver, where they then sort of blow up his cargo, they are waiting for him. And I wrote down, they're like lionesses on the Serengeti.
Totally. It was
waiting for their prey.
Yes. It was an absolute set piece. And I love that guy's I love that guy's kind of story arc, because it started off with being friendly guy letting us pass. Then we clocked the mud cut guards, and then the tongue comes out, and then down the road, oh my God, this guy again, and he's escalating and starting to grab his crutch and do all kinds of things. It was like he went from, oh, how nice, he let us pass it. And one of them even verbalized that, to he escalated and escalated and escalated. And by the time they saw him that 3rd time, they've got a murder under their belt, they've got a robbery under their belt, they've got nothing to lose. That film does a really tricky thing of making us enjoy them committing crimes.
Yeah.
So that when it becomes apparent that, oh no, you don't get away with crimes in this show.
Yeah.
That was really interesting, because the overkill of police and the overkill of chase was like, oh shit, this is grand larceny and murder. Like, what am I thinking? The whole time I'm enjoying them so much, I forget they're doing irredeemable things or unforgivable in the face of the law things. And Louise has already told us, you don't want to go to prison. So that point of no return.
What you said there, I think, is that to me is one of the themes or like key things the film is saying is in the eyes of the law, because
in the eyes of the law.
I think the
morally,
morally,
right.
I think one of the points of this film is like these women make some of these decisions. They make dumb decisions, okay? I'm not going to say they made smart decisions, but they made the decisions that they were left with in the society that they exist.
Totally.
Yeah, Louise probably shouldn't have shot the guy at that point, but she said it. They're not going to believe us, and they don't, especially at this time. I mean, even now in the UK, very few rape cases get prosecuted. It is
it's
3%
everywhere.
3% in the UK, 2% in the US.
Yeah,
I looked it up.
It's astounding, right? And so then they're going to put themselves through that. If anything, get charged with murder, even if it was self-defense. And then I find it really interesting in the scene with JD, aka Baby Brad, and Harvey Keitel. I forgot his character's name now, but you know, he tells him Hal. Thank you. He tells him to leave the room. And he's like, do you think those women would have robbed that store if you hadn't stole from them?
Exactly. You caused this.
So you caused this. So it's really interesting that honestly, up before the truck driver scene, it's like they're just kind of reacting to the situation. Poor reactions, poor decisions, but still reacting to the society they exist in. And I think that is the scene where they finally have the power. You know,
totally. And I think this would pivot us to kind of my feelings about the male portrayal in this film. I think Callie, and that's the thing, you kind of think A Few Good Men, a film directed by Rob Reiner, R.I.P., and fantastic Aaron Sorkin. But it sort of played to their strengths as storytellers that they couldn't give the woman more agency or even any friends. Whereas when you're marginalized, you tend to have an ear for other people. And I think Callie, knowing how to write women all day in her sleep, hands tied behind her back, brought nuance to these men. Because I think Christopher McDonald, that was a star-making turn by him. Brad's Chest was a star-making turn, but McDonald, for me, was absolutely pitch perfect. Because he was the comedic beating heart of the thing. As funny and witty as the women's kind of dialogue was in a lot of places, and Ridley was very intentional about lightening it. It was a heavy themes lightened up was Rid's kind of note to Callie and note to himself in directing. But Christopher McDonald's journey from I'm treating my wife probably the only way I've seen men treat wives to look at me crumbling, now I'm on my own, there's pizza on the floor because no one's here to cook for me, to, oh my God, my wife is a bank robber. He's sitting around crying because you don't, you have to realize that just because you haven't been the best your wife, if the Thelma we see evolve turned around and told him off like the go fuck yourself scene, but in person, and then they had to do a marriage after she'd finally stood up to him, I think they could have gone on for another 50 years. But there was something about seeing him crumble without her. Seeing him, he's got his telly, he's got his football, he's got his good watch, he's like a, she makes him a coffee, she's like, hon, is it okay? And hon, is it okay? She's playing a role, he's playing a role. But as they started getting real, which was her getting stronger and him realizing I'm nothing without her, a real truth kind of, you saw him evolve in 3 beats. You saw the truck driver evolve in 3 beats. Our state police stayed the only person that had any kind of emotional nuance whatsoever. He was empathetic. He was, look, you're not in trouble. You're witnesses as far as I'm concerned. If you want to tell me that guy hurt you, I'm here to listen to that. And then Mr. Cold, robotic arm of the federal government, Mr. FBI coming in, that fantastic scene with the 3 men where he was just like, just tell her romantic shit. Women love that shit. That scene was hilarious. And I think that was spontaneous laughter from the other 2 actors on that, because that was too good. Harvey Keitel, he's got such a great laugh from the belly. So when he laughed at Stephen Tobolowsky saying, women love that shit, it was part looking at him thinking, what do you know about women? And part and part the other 2, Daryl, wasn't he playing the teenager being schooled by his uncles? He had that, the tilt down, the look up. He had that kind of, I'm in the presence of adults now. They're teaching us to be women. It just, these performances were absolutely
amazing. Amazing. And McDonald, he was actually Geena Davis, they were exes. She recommended him for that role when somebody else dropped out. But going back to the phone call scene, when they cut back to like the cops and him, again, to your point, he's like, what's the big deal? And they all know, like, you dumbass, like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know anything about women.
Yeah, because he blows it just for the
oh my God, it was too perfect. It was a great setup. Comedic setup is, I don't want to be offensive, but what's your relationship like with your, I love her. And it's like, no, I wasn't asking that. I said, what's your relationship like? So Hal is mature, he's nuanced, and he knew what he was trying to get at. Are you going to blow it if that woman calls is what he wanted to know.
And he
did. It's either be an arsehole like you usually are or be a sweetheart, but tell me which one you actually are. And he wasn't confident enough and he wasn't honest enough to be, well, we fight a lot, so she probably won't want to call her. He had that out and he didn't take it. So of course, in a room full of other men, Mama, how are you, honey? And it was like, mate, who the hell is this?
Yes.
The scene that she hung up again had me cackling.
I thought it was really random, but I liked showing the cops playing around with each other. It's a very simple detail, a very small detail, but when they show up to Thelma's house
and they're shoving to get to the door.
But what I think is really important is it shows that they're human.
Totally.
They're not just cliche, they're human.
Second beat, movie night.
Yes.
Because when you're on stakeouts, when you're hanging around, when you are waiting for a thing to happen, you become very pally. All of the I've got this hierarchy, I've got this job title falls away. They're enjoying a really romantic movie and this guy's got the cheek to cut the football on. Like, excuse me. I know it's your house, but excuse me.
Yeah.
And the way
it's
you have
so
to put it
sweet.
back, like, oh, God, all right then. Teenager with the remote again.
Yes.
I looked up what film that was, and it is Penny Serenade, starring Cary Grant from 1941.
I wonder whose idea that was, because it was such a lovely nuance. It was such a lovely point. I just love that they were all, and you can imagine they'd taken their shoes off, and it's just like holes in the socks watching a romantic film.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about the men, I mean, yes, I feel as if Hal is the only example of a decent man in this film. Yeah. I think it's very interesting that we've got the rapist or would-be rapist, probably already has before, and you've got the truck driver, you've got all these kind of unreconstructed males.
And Jimmy. Jimmy sort of absent. Did a good thing, but
emotionally immature.
Flash of emotional immaturity with that angry outburst. Then back to being a good guy. But then we realized that Jimmy blabbed big time when the police came in because he found JD because of it. Jimmy did a lot of talking at the police station.
Yeah,
which he said
exactly. So none of the men can be depended upon. I thought it was even interesting that with the traffic cop, who is so kind of stern and strong and silent, and when he's in control, when he's got a gun in his holster, but the minute that they turn the tables on him, he turns into a sniveling little ninny. And
really brilliant.
I love the kind of payoff to that, where he's then trapped in his trunk and he's crying for help, and then the cyclist comes by. Just for context for the listeners, the cyclist is a black guy. And I love the fact that, it's very pertinent, evergreen thing of he takes his sweet time to investigate the situation. And then he's basically like, you can always see the cogs turning like, what do we have here? And then he ends up just blowing his cigar smoke into the air holes.
Oh, no. It was two things. It was the finger in the bullet hole going, the keys are over there. That was one thing where I thought, how realistic is that? Because he was in the boot when she chucked the keys. How would he know?
Yeah.
So that was a tiny little continuity thing for me. But he was actually smoking weed. And I think that's what let it down. It's like the first time we have a black character who has no speaking part is also a weed head. So I was like, we could have done something a little bit. If it had been cigar, that would have been hilarious.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I misread that on my screen.
So it was a bit disappointing that it was sort of black guy, weed doesn't help. And I was like, I wanted to enjoy it more. And I think I enjoyed it on first watch, but watching it now as a 50-year-old who understands story nuance and representation and all the rest of it, I was just like, we failed on that one.
Well,
the finger point was funny when I first saw it, but then I was like, how would he know? How would he know where
I guess I just read it as, why would someone who's most likely experienced police brutality help this cop out? But I see.
But
now
isn't that a very 2026 lens? In 1991, we haven't seen a lot of that on TV, right?
Well, in 1991 in America, you had
the Rodney King thing was about then,
wasn't it? So it's
the
same year as Rodney King, and Rodney King was earlier in the year. However, this had already, I would assume
this was written in 1990.
Exactly.
So,
but I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't exactly a secret how the police treated black men and people, and it's still not. But I think what Rodney King did is it put it on people's televisions, and it was like, you can't turn away from that.
Yeah. So we didn't have that at the time of the film being written per se.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about the guys. We talked a little bit about the ladies, Thelma and Louise. Let's talk about Geena Davis and Susan Sarandon and how
Oh,
much I love their friendship.
love,
Because they
love.
really became friends.
Yeah.
And Geena talked about how Susan was kind of like her, like is still one of her heroes. She had an
Okay.
interview with Emma Watson about 10 years ago, and she said it was an eye-opening moment in my life, a very defining moment, was the first time I met Susan Sarandon. And she was amazing. We sit down to go through the script. I swear, I think it was page 1. She goes, so my first line, I don't think we need that line. Or can we put it on page 2? Cut this. And I was like, my jaw was to the ground because she was just saying what she thought.
Yeah.
She was saying her opinion. Even though I was 34 or 35 or something, I was like, people can do that. Women can actually just say what they think. It was an extraordinary experience to do that movie with her because every day it was a lesson in how to just be yourself. And I just love that. And there's another story. So apparently, Ridley Scott did want to put a scene where Thelma removes her shirt, and Davis was uncomfortable with it and made an awkward exit to lunch. And she went to Susan for advice. And so after they kind of found no reason for Davis's character to do that, Susan marched over to Ridley and told him that they wouldn't be taking her top off.
I love it. I love
Which
that.
is great. So
Yeah. I think just on the thing about the costumes, I wanted to say that she's dressed in very kind of soft feminine clothing that
Totally.
is
Sundress,
not very
hand
windproof.
Yeah.
But she starts out in this almost very innocent off the shoulder top, but by the end these characters,
Double denim badass.
yes.
they are dressed for the road, in as much as they're dressed in this kind of quite lean, pared back outfits. And it really suggests they have thrown off all the frills and flounce and femininity that is performative, shall we say. And now they are locked in and they're on the road and they are just themselves pared back. So I really love that choice with the costumes. That just sort of shows that evolution.
One thing I noticed is they got prettier.
Yes, I thought the
When
same thing.
they got absolutely prettier. When even the bar maid who was talking about, the one with the tied up hair or the primmed up hair, there's no way that she would have done it. And the other one, like Geena, it was a face full of makeup. I think she had a blue eyeshadow going. The hair was curled to within an inch of its life. It was all happening. But it was later on, after those curls had fallen, after being tossed around the hotel room, in those glasses, the way the fringe just tousled over and the way she then pinned her hair up and then Sarandon had the curls tumbling down. When she walked over to the phone booth to make that call to Jimmy, those curls on her, when she's sitting there looking out, when she joins that man on the stoop and looks out, she's very frontier woman. She has that kind of vibe to her, that kind of wide expanse. My life is ahead of me. I've made decisions that have put me in danger, but I've also made counter decisions that are going to be my exit and are going to lead me to where I want to lead. And I love those poignant moments, just like those gorgeous moments going through Monument Valley where it's in the dark and she's having that moment of what's life all about, what's it all about under the stars and things like that. All of those kind of moments, those two couldn't look more beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a few times when they've been in the mirror. There was one where Sarandon sees a spot of blood and she gets really anal about it. And there's another one where Thelma pulls out her lippy, takes one look at herself and thinks lippy's not going to help. So I love that they cared about their looks, but the less they cared, the prettier they got. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think it's going back, you're seeing the progression of the characters and how they're changing. Yeah. And in the beginning, they're very, specifically Geena Davis's, specifically Thelma, she's all dolled up. Like she thinks this is how grown women wear.
Got to present for the world.
Yeah. Can you imagine anyone else in these roles, ladies?
No.
Well, I know that there were other actors
who did they have?
cast. Yeah, but I forget. I can tell that you can tell us though, Molly.
I'm setting myself up. Thanks,
Please.
Chloe. So Michelle Pfeiffer and Jodie Foster were originally chosen.
Oh, Jodie Foster.
I can totally see that one.
And maybe Sigourney Weaver. She would have been amazing.
She would have been, yes.
She would have been
She would have been
fantastic.
really good.
Yeah.
And Jodie
Yeah.
Foster, fair to her, she didn't do it because she ended up doing Silence of the Lambs,
Sweet.
Fair
which
enough.
she won the Oscar for.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
Fair enough, Jodie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, fair game. And Michelle Pfeiffer, she's the one that told Ridley Scott, like, why don't you just do this yourself? She's the one that's like, you need to direct this.
Love that.
Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn were then offered
Oh,
to play the
Ooh,
leads.
okay.
Interesting. Slightly older choices, but interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they had
Yeah.
done Death Becomes Her just like I think a year before this.
Yeah. Of
Okay.
course.
And then finally like Geena Davis, because she had been pursuing the lead role for a year, and then Susan Sarandon ultimately chosen.
Yeah.
They took extensive driving and shooting lessons, and apparently Geena Davis wanted to actually be Louise first. And
Yeah.
Ridley was like, I don't see you as that, but you'll definitely be one of the lead characters.
I wondered if we could chat a little bit about Ridley Scott's direction. And I thought it was really interesting the fact that he's working with an English cinematographer. So you have these two Englishmen behind the camera framing the shots of this very American landscape, this classic American road movie.
I can see that working because it was the perspective of not being from there.
Yes.
Just imagine your location scout going, right, so this is the route, this is how it looks on the map, let's go and check it out, let's go get in a truck and just have a little scope around, scope. And it's like, holy moly.
Yeah.
And these are the roads that Americans take on their American holidays. These aren't places. Who goes to the US and is like, oh, we're going straight to Monument Valley? Like, no one. It's New York, it's Miami, it's LA, it's all the coastal, all the other things. You go in the middle of the US because you've got family. So these parts of the world are rarely seen by Europeans. So they must have had an absolute gorgeous field day when their location scout was like, I think I found something.
Yeah.
And just like his use of the scenery as backdrop and almost like a character.
Yes.
You know, those pulled out, zoomed out scenes. This is pre drone shots.
Yes.
So just you could tell he was enjoying having this lovely palette and landscape to play. Because he kept on giving it to us. He kept on giving it to us. Yeah.
So that was actually filmed in Utah at Arches National Park, and it is beautiful. It still looks like that today. Albeit more cars.
But it really shows the isolation of this landscape that they're going in. Like they are in danger. You know, they're in danger from the cop because, as we all know, the cops are very trigger happy.
Yeah.
Your body will never be found.
No.
And they're in danger from the truck driver because he could be a violent man for all they
He could
know.
have been nastier,
They're empowered by the end when they do finally confront him. But it is this isolated, remote area. And I think us Europeans cannot comprehend the scale that America is built on.
No.
The other thing I wanted to sort of mention about Ridley Scott's approach is he went to Royal College of Art. He is an artist first and then is a filmmaker. And so he knows his old masters. He knows what he's doing in terms of framing. And throughout the film, there is just this really beautiful classic approach to framing with putting the subject on the golden ratio line and just always framing it so it is so beautiful. But he's really inventive with the way that he puts together his shots. So just as an example, there's a moment where Thelma is in the foreground in the passenger seat of the Thunderbird, and I think she's doing her makeup in the rearview mirror. And then Brad Pitt, JD, is wandering around in the background.
In the
quite
background,
noticeably. And you are watching her watching him in the rearview mirror. And it's that kind of deliberateness to the picture making, if you like, that really elevates it, you know, along with that smart script that isn't afraid to sort of have the kind of thorny, difficult aspects of characterization, as well as the very funny lines in it. You know, all of that comes together to make it so much more than just this kind of Pulp Fiction revenge drama.
Yes.
It's not just a pastiche, it's its own film.
Yeah. And to that point, kind of bringing both of those together is talking about the shots and the landscape. I love that scene when Louise goes to called Jimmy, I think it's Jimmy. And she goes to the pay phone, and then all of a sudden you see this pan and you see what's
the old
behind
guy.
her.
Yeah.
And so you suddenly get a sense of the vastness of where they are.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of nowhere. They're really, as you said, Chloe, alone in the middle of nowhere. And I loved it.
Louise and Thelma comes tumbling out of like an outhouse, and you know it's gross in there.
It's so
You just
gross.
know it was absolutely hideous in there.
My mother would not use that outhouse.
I just want to ask, what does everyone think about the ending? Because it is incredibly famous.
Oh my God, the incredible ending.
It's incredibly famous.
Life-changing ending. That chase was really credible.
Yes.
My heartbeat was up. I was so worried for them. I was so knowing everything you know about US police, and even Hal's character said, you know what it gets like.
Yes.
It gets hot and heated, and then no one's listening to anyone. Let's just cool it down. And Tobolowsky's character was like, listen, we're going to handle it how we handle it. It's going to go how it's going to go. And it was like, that is not the answer that any of us wanted to hear. So as soon as it wasn't one car, it wasn't two cars, that pull out and reveal it was about 20 cars was absolutely fantastic. Them outrunning, that driving was so badass. You're screaming at the TV, go, 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 don't stop, go, go. Like, it really drew you in. And then them hitting that ledge, that lip, and then pulling back from that lip, that's when you thought, shit, end of the road. We've been on this road for the better part of a couple of hours or hour and a half, and this is the end of the road. Do they surrender? I already didn't want them to, but I didn't know what they'd have to do to not surrender. And then that helicopter came up, and what a scene. All that dust, all of that kind of, the fog of war kind of dust, kind of the plumes. And it was like a decision was made in that mist. A decision was made. Something came over the two of them. And that agency, I'm not going to joke. Louise trying to go out in a blaze of glory, filling the gun up with bullets. I was like, this is beyond badass now. She's back. She's back. That crumpled woman in the hotel room whose money got nicked, she's back.
Yes.
Because she's filling that gun, and she's just like, I'll at least take 5 of you.
She's an icon.
And then Thelma saying, babes, why don't we just keep going?
Yeah.
And that pause, like, no one's been more annoyed by that freeze frame until the Sopranos freeze frame. It was just so perfect, because there's a part of you that's like, oh yeah, they landed on the ledge below and they kept going. Like, you can still suspend a bit of belief, but that agency of everything we've done has been catalyzed by interaction with a man.
Yeah.
And now we're going to take it into our own hands. This is on our own terms. I didn't realize how badass that was when I watched it at 15, 16. I was hooping and hollering watching it in my 20s, and hooping and hollering watching it now. It's so important and so impactful to give these two characters you've come to love, that no matter what they do, and even if it's breaking the law, killing someone, doing whatever, you've kept it on the right side of justified. They were justified to kill him. He was going to do a thing. They were justified to try and get some money back. She didn't hurt anyone. In fact, she was very, very polite. They were justified in blowing up that guy's car. Why is he grabbing his dick and doing that thing with his tongue? Like, they made sure that we never turn on them. So when it came to the end, it was like, I'm not going to sit and watch these two women get a firing squad. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So when they were like, oh, don't worry, audience, there won't be any firing squad. We're going to keep going. I was just like, yes. Like, I've never rooted for someone's ending like I did for that. But it was very Butch and Sundance, wasn't it?
Yes.
Run out and do a blaze of glory, or let's keep going, and that's how I loved it. I really, really.
And it's treating a female characters like you would treat male characters.
Male characters,
they are allowed to be anti-heroines.
Yes.
Yes, and I love how, at the end, Thelma's like, "I just want you to know, like, whatever happens, like, this was something like this was the best vacation I've ever
I've
had,"
had a
or,
great time.
they're starting to say their
Mm,
goodbyes, and I was just like, "Yes, girl," like, it was
yeah,
so sweet, and
yeah,
they kiss each other, not romantically, but, they think they're
yeah.
about to
It's
die, and,
gorgeous.
like, what else are you gonna do with your
Gorgeous.
best friend? And I thought it
Yeah.
was actually what was really clever about that scene as well, you're talking about the car, like, it is totally believable that that car does just end up on the other side or on a ledge because of everything. Like the cop cars are just, they're beside themselves. They're flipping over. They're getting stuck in bridges,
Yeah.
and that car just keeps going. That car
Mm.
That
cannot
Thunderbird could
stop.
not be
It's a
stopped,
great advert for Thunderbirds.
It is a great
wasn't it?
advert.
Like, there was every chance they shimmy down a mountainside and are still on the road now.
They're in
They're in
Mexico
Mexico.
They're in
drinking
Yeah.
pina
Mexico now.
coladas.
They have a bar on Mexico Beach,
Two
hopefully.
old
Yeah.
broads in a
Yeah.
Mexican bar who are full of stories that
Yes.
no one believes.
Yes. Amazing.
Uh,
I kind of wanted to quickly talk about the impact, but also, this was
mm,
1991. And a lot of things that they are talking about, we heard again during the Me Too movement. It was
Yeah.
really starting to talk about, which was in 2017. And in some ways, I think we've come a long ways and we've come a long way in some ways and we're kind of not
mm,
in others. And so in some ways I felt like, oh, this is a 1991 film, but this also could have been made in 2000. It could be
Totally.
made
Yeah.
mm,
today. So yeah, I thought that was a really interesting observation, and also the fact that when this came out suddenly both actresses Gina Davis and specifically Gina Davis talks about this and how she's like, oh well, now there's going to be all these
mm,
films with women main characters, and as we know that didn't happen, and I feel like that
Mhm.
always happens when we have like some big film comes out and it's like, oh, now's the time.
She
But
found a few. She was in
yes,
League of Their
mm,
Own and Long Kiss, so she
yeah,
did find a few ways of being the change she wanted
yes,
to see, as it
yes,
were. But yeah, it didn't come flooding through. It's like what's happened recently with the Barbie
yes.
movie. It's like this was a film full of women, fantastic positions, monologues, just kind of nuance of where they are in the world and how relatable that was. And the question was, is the film industry going to be, oh, women's films really work?
Mm,
Or are they going to be like, oh, films about toys really
mm.
work? And that's the question, isn't it? Are they going to grasp the right
Yeah, I
yeah,
stick?
don't I don't believe that. In many ways I agree with you that film examining these themes are evergreen. And so you can watch Thelma and Louise and connect with those characters. There's no part of me that thinks that Louise is wrong nowadays in terms of we won't
Right,
be
yeah,
believed, because women are continually not believed to the point of 97%
right.
are not believed. And but I feel a bit down on our current state of affairs, like you, Sarah. I don't know if I believe that this film would be made. It'd probably be remade in some kind of crass and depressing
Right.
way. But I
Yeah.
I guess there's just not enough female screenwriters and stories and female characters being put up onto the screen.
Yeah.
So like you, I feel like you get them once in a blue moon. I wish that this film had opened the floodgates to having women portrayed
Uh-huh.
in this nuanced way and in lots of different ways and different guises. And I don't think I
Yeah.
think it's still really tokenistic.
Very. We
yeah,
got snowdrips, we didn't get
Yeah.
floodgates at
yeah,
all. And the parts of it that helped it become a thing was the big name
Mm,
director, the good studio relationships, the all of the rest of it. League of Their Own, mainly male team behind it, so even where there have been wins that have punched
mm,
through, there's often a long-standing, well-resourced, well-networked,
mm.
well-connected element to these things punching through. It's not just on the strength of, oh, we don't have enough of
Yeah.
this type of story, let's get more of
yeah.
this type of
Mm.
story. So it's a real shame that it didn't kind of flip the table in that sense. But what I do appreciate is how it is classed as a
Yes.
classic.
Yes.
it's known as a classic. And even Chloe, you said, a family member, a male family member said, "Oh, it's a classic,"
We're watching this.
and
Yeah,
watching it with, right, we're
exactly.
watching this and watching it with my husband. At no point did he look away, look at his phone, get
Yeah.
bored, any of it. He was lent all the way in, just like I
Yeah.
was watching this. So yeah, so when things are kind of undeniable, you'd wish that Hollywood would take that as a cue of, oh, let's do more of that, rather than, oh, it was standalone, it was his own
You get
thing, we
one.
don't
You
have to
get one
replicate.
one every few
Yeah.
years, ladies.
It's so ridiculous.
I do. And let's give Geena Davis her props because, she took her
Mm.
power. And there's a lot of,
Totally.
I'm not going to name any names, but there's a lot of actresses that, talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. Where Geena Davis, she created the Geena Davis
Yeah.
Institute on
Yeah, I
Gender and
follow
Media.
her, and she is such an inspiration because, she Accidental Tourist, Thelma and Louise, her two most pivotal roles were playing ditzes, and she's got a ridiculously high
Mm.
IQ in real life.
Yeah.
She's well known as a very smart lady of
Mm.
Hollywood. And she really took the Be the Change You Want to See mantle on, because the whole thing that the Geena Davis Institute does is it funds and spotlights research about gender
Mm.
inequality. She even did a study on Disney films where they were like, you've had a 10-15 year run of all of your films having strong female leads. It's Little Mermaid, it's Mulan, it's all of these jazz, Princess Jazz, all that kind of stuff, which is fantastic. But one thing we noted is in all of your crowds and background scenes, it's predominantly
Mm.
men. Who's in your team? And then it turns out there wasn't a single female on the team. So even though they were front spotlighting a female character as a sales point, because they know little girls want to watch Disney
Mm.
films, they still reverted back to their own familiarity when they
Yep.
were kind of doing what they saw
Yeah.
as the peripheral, it doesn't matter, we'll just chuck bodies in the background kind of thing. And she was like, that's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of representation that's lacking. So just little studies like that and spotlighting it is sort of her
Mm.
really being a part of that conversation nonstop throughout the years. So I really
Mm.
commend her.
Okay, so ladies, let's move on to our worst, most awards portion. Sarah, I'm going to start
Mm.
with you. What do you think aged well, or
Yeah.
what has aged terribly?
I think what aged well is the enduring friendship. I think
Mm.
we've kind of, yeah, that kind of, women in a thing together, Bechdel test, the Sex and the City of it all. We have this sense of whenever women get together, there's just the one thing to talk about. And although they ran from scenario to scenario, so that was the topic of the day, there was a real sense of we've dropped in on people that have had a whole life before these cameras got here.
Yes.
I
Mm.
really believe that. I
Yes.
think that absolutely endured through the whole thing, that flip of who was the adult and who was the naive one, back to who had agency and who didn't. And then when they finally, that scene where the truck driver's walking towards them and they both have their legs open, that open leg stance in the car
Yes.
was so, oh, they are on the same page.
Yes.
This guy is cooked.
Yeah.
I was so in love with the evolution of that friendship, and I believed every minute
Mm.
of it. I think what didn't age as well was obviously the misogyny. She was making a point then, but it wasn't even the husband's behavior towards Thelma. It was more the men sitting around talking.
Mm.
It was more when Daryl's being instructed on how to be on the phone,
Mm.
and it was Hal's conversation about Daryl. His first thing is, oh, what is it? I go to work and I leave for work, and you've left your senses. It's that kind of.
Mm.
You get that she's trying to give you a point in time of this is how men treated women, but it rubs so badly in
Yeah.
2026 watching that.
Yeah.
It makes him such a villain. And the thing is, he's not a villain. All that guy did was not know how to love his wife. He might have been
Mm.
cheating. She called at 4 a.m. and he wasn't home, so he's a bit of a dickhead. But ultimately, those scenes of a woman's place and how we feel about women, and an FBI agent telling you, yeah, saying some of this shit, women love that shit. It was just so dismissive and so real. So
Yeah.
that didn't, it aged well enough to annoy, but it didn't age well in the current. You couldn't put those words in men's mouths now unless they were a real villain.
Yeah.
My reaction to the misogyny, the sexism in the film was there's a lot of chauvinism. There's, as you describe, this attitude of, oh, the silly little housewife, you know, you're here to cook and clean for me. And women love that shit, you know, I think is a really key line. We keep on coming back to it. And obviously there is a range of absolute misogyny because we have the rapist who slaps. I mean, he basically sort of punches Thelma well, you know, before then attempting to rape her. But I feel like the misogyny has hardened since into something that is even nastier. And 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I think I could have said to you, oh, I think we're past all that. I think we're facing a brighter dawn where men are evolving in their attitudes towards women. We have gone back since the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think that misogyny is mainstream.
It snapped back.
We are now facing a world where radicalized hatred against women is mainstream. It is fueled by these sinister theories about women being objects that men get to use and abuse and treat as disposable. That kind of leering, apish sexism, or that kind of casual thing of like, oh, they're not quite like us kind of thing, is in some ways less terrifying than what we're facing now. In some ways, I feel like almost this is a time capsule of a path where we could have been on a better path and we've gone back. But that was my reaction just thinking about it in a much, you know, sort of 35 years on.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? It hasn't aged well, but also things are worse now is such a place to be, isn't it? What a time to be alive.
Downer.
I just don't even know how to think or feel these days.
That's why we're watching these films, guys, to make us feel better. So I think for me, what aged well, Sarah's already said it. We've already said, I think the friendship, these are fully formed women. So I'll add, I thought the production design, we say this a lot in this podcast. These characters feel lived in. This place feels lived in. I think what aged terribly was something for wardrobe, and that is Thelma's T-shirt at the end when they blow up the truck is wearing a Confederate flag, a rebel flag. So I was like, okay, Thelma, that's not aged very well. Let's get that out of our.
And would that have been read to an audience then? Would that have read as rebellion as opposed to out and out racist?
I think it was meant to be rebellion
or
stolen from Daryl's wardrobe.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I wear my husband's T-shirt around the house vibe.
Okay.
So what about when we're looking at the most 90s scene or line, ladies? Was there anything that stuck out for you?
I don't know if this is typical of the 90s at all, but I just want to shout out to the aquarium lampshade that's it's in Thelma and her husband's house.
Yes.
And it has actual living fish in
shit.
the lampshade.
So good.
The European mind cannot comprehend such an item of trash in an American household. Iconic in and of itself.
I was going to say, like, we say this a lot, but smoking indoors, and specifically Louise smoking in the kitchen.
Louise in the restaurant.
I know. I love that.
And
I also love the telephones with long cords so that they can pick up and go and talk on the balcony or whatever, and calling on phones in diners and stuff like that.
The multiple coins in the phone box.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
The chintzy wallpaper, the blue eyeshadow, although I think it's more of an 80s hangover.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hair going on in some of the scenes. But I think also, I thought from a filmmaking point of view, what's very 90s, and I've said this before and I'll probably keep on wondering about it, the very opening is a long credits intro over a sort of slow pan of the mountains and the road from near the end. And I just don't believe that modern audiences would have the patience to sit through a long credit sequence where there's nothing happening. Now I watch films and TV and I think, oh, the credits are popping up on the screen whilst the story is happening. In those days, they were like, we accept that the audience is going to sit down. Maybe they're still getting a popcorn, I don't know, but they are sitting down and they're going to sit and watch all these names in the credits at the beginning, and they won't walk out or get bored.
Well, and on that note, also, I feel like the montage at the end, the credits montage was very 90s. Like, oh,
Yes.
remember, this is the film you literally just saw. Remember all these great scenes?
It's the wrap up.
I know.
The wrap up.
Here's your favorite bits. But I have to say, a rare case of being agreeing with Roger Ebert on something, and he actually criticizes the end because he says he feels that they don't hold that freeze frame shot for long enough.
Same, I agree with that.
And I agreed. I was so surprised because I have that image in my head. It's, it's so
It's
iconic.
enduring, yeah.
And I was really surprised that it's like it's over in a flash, and then we get the kind of the credit montage, which kind of is there to almost go, they're there, they were really good friends.
Yeah.
And so I agree with Roger Ebert. I think maybe we should have seen it for longer and really kind of had a moment to pause.
To just
and then
pause, breathe,
go to black.
Beats. Yeah.
Fade to black.
But I think if you fade to black, then it's, to me, maybe they didn't want to do that because they wanted to leave it open-ended. But fading to black means like fade to black, they're dead.
Yeah.
You're
So
dead.
maybe that's why they went fade to white.
Fade to white then,
Yes.
I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, just we needed a beat or two more. I felt like that was a blink.
Does anybody have any awards we want to give this? Made-up awards that we want to give Thelma and Louise?
I think most iconic portrayal of double denim. I adored.
I second you on that. I second you on
Gave
that.
her hair on her chest. Like, she just became this hot. I started to fancy her at that point.
She all did.
Gorgeous to
She
me at
looks
that
amazing.
point.
I think
Tousled hair, the shades. Oh, she
Yeah.
was giving everything once the double denim kicked in.
she looks incredible. And I think at some point, whilst wearing that double denim outfit, she then puts a denim jacket on top.
That's right.
So she's doing triple denim,
Triple
and we're behind
denim.
her on that. Yeah,
Not
it
for the
is.
faint
She
of
pulls it
heart,
off.
the triple denim. Yeah.
I've got I'm going to bring back our now occasional award, Best Response to Male Piggery.
Yes. Oh, yes. From
which
Dazed and
we
Confused.
last doled out in Dazed and Confused. For this, Thelma and Louise tricking the truck driver and blowing up his cargo.
Yes.
But they give him a dressing down beforehand.
Yeah.
And it's sort of everything that you would like to say to these awful men. All young girls and women are subject to just this kind of crass, continual leering. It's relentless. So for their sake, I love that Thelma and Louise turn the tables and make that man
agree.
cry.
Yes.
Really
as you
agree.
should.
The cop crying, that man crying. I said to my husband that, there's like a well-known stat in female circles of a man's fear on a first date is not being found interesting or funny, and a woman's fear of a first date is not making it home.
Yep.
So we live
Yeah.
in two different places, mentally,
Yep.
emotionally, and all of it. Any film that portrays that level of agency, that level of no, you fucking don't, how very dare you, all the above, I really adored. And it dawned on me rewatching this would have been an early version of that.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
ladies, as we're coming to the end, we, on this podcast, we asked you, were these films really as good as we remember, or bad, or their reputation if we didn't see it at the time? I think I know the answer to this question. I'll ask Sarah first. So, Sarah, did this film hold up? Does it live up to its reputation?
Yeah, it held up and then some. I welled up again at the end. I love a film. I love comedies that make me laugh in the same place, even though I know the punchline's coming, and dramas that make me get emotional in the same places, because it just means it's resonant, it's held up well, it's framed well, you've drawn me back in. So 100% yes for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me as well. I just love this friendship. And I think, honestly, what sealed it for me is the very end when Thelma was like, this is the best trip I've ever had. And she was just so heartfelt. And yeah. Okay. So ladies, if someone has watched this and they're wanting something, a recommendation to watch next, maybe it's like the vibe, an actor, director, whatever, What would you recommend, Sarah, they watch next?
I think three main ones came to mind for me when watching it. The first one was Nomadland,
Yeah.
which is giving you that landscape, an independent woman taking agency of her own journey. It's a bit of an odyssey for her as well. The people she meets along the way, how they inform her experience and things like that. I think that was comparable. I think Set It Off is another one from the 90s, which is female friendships, crime, agency. You know, those girls had a very specific need for that money. That wasn't robbery for robbery's sake. And when they got in danger, you really feared for them and you really kind of cared about them. Again, they've done a crime, but you don't want them to face the consequences of doing the
Yeah.
crime. And then last but not least, not as well known, and definitely didn't get a massive rollout, but there's a film called Queen and Slim,
Yes, that was going to be on my
which was
list.
written by, oh my God, which was written by Lena Waithe and directed by a fantastic Moroccan director whose name escapes me. Musakis is her surname. It's two black individuals meet on a first date. Police comes to trouble them when they're at their car, and we've had years of seeing how traffic stops go in the US, especially when it's white cop black drivers. So they do something sort of necessary but at the same time hideous by killing the cop, and then they go on the run to avoid the consequences of that meeting and that happenstance, and they grow together and they learn to get to know each other. And what was really interesting was Thelma and Louise is based on years long friendship. These two had just met, but they got on the same page very, very quickly. So yeah, Set It Off for the girls doing crimes, Nomadland for the older woman going on an odyssey of self-discovery in these gorgeous landscapes, and then Queen and Slim, which is what happens when your life gets ricocheted by an interaction with someone who's just there to mess with them.
Yeah. I just looked up the director. It's Melina Matsoukas.
Melina! Yes,
So
that's
there we
it.
go. Yeah.
Fantastic Melina.
So good.
Yeah.
Chloe, what about you?
I've got a couple. In terms of a film that deals with rape, a recent film, How to Have Sex,
Oh, yeah.
which is a British film and about a young girl who goes on her first kind of girls' holiday to Ibiza, and she is raped. And it's about her kind of confused and traumatized response to it and how her friends respond to it. Really kind of beautiful, nuanced portrayal, and really thinks about the shades of grey of it all. In terms of empowering films, one of my all-time favourite films, Mad Max Fury Road, which kind of takes the Mad Max mythos and then reshapes it with a really kind of feminist perspective. And it's basically a feminist road movie. It's a bunch of women escaping this tyrannical male despot with Mad Max in tow. But it's really Charlize Theron's film, and it's got epic car chases that are kind of reinvent car chase. You don't even know the meaning of car chase until you've seen this film. And it's set in post-apocalyptic Australia, but that kind of desert landscape is, again, really maximised. And then I was thinking of Widows, which is a Steve McQueen film.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
So good.
Weirdly, it's based on, like, I think an ITV drama, but it got really kind of elevated with the kind of Hollywood treatment. And it's got Viola Davis, Michelle Rodriguez, Cynthia Erivo, Elizabeth Debicki, and they are these, well, widows of a bunch of basically thieves who are left with their dead partner's debt, and they've got to find the money somehow. So they pull off a heist, and it's sort of women turning to crime to survive, and it's great. And I feel like we don't really talk about it. It's quite a fairly recent film.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people didn't talk about that, and I think Viola Davis should have been nominated for an Oscar.
Oh my God, Widows was fantastic.
It was so good.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to echo what Sarah already said. Queen and Slim was on my list. I can't add anything, so just go check it out if you have not seen it. It will break your heart, but it's a good one. If you want a Ridley Scott film, Ridley Scott for me has kind of mixed reviews in the last few years, but to me, his most underrated film, which also has a female co-writer, Nicole Hofsinner. She wrote Can You Ever Forgive Me? But also Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. It was the first time they teamed up again for writing since Good Will Hunting, is The Last Duel. In 14th century France, Damon is a knight who challenges a former friend, played by Adam Driver, to a duel after Damon's wife, played by Jodie Comer, accuses Adam Driver's character of raping her. And again, this is 14th century France. And so, and what's really, it has kind of a Rashomon, because you see all of the different viewpoints of what happened. And it's really good, again, dealing with what do we do when women accuse men of rape? And, this is 14th century France. And I'm just shocked that it did not get more attention. And it was 2021. It was the same year as House of Gucci. So maybe that took up all the air. But I really think it's one of his most underrated films. Again, The Last Duel. And lastly, if you want a more lighter note, a road trip movie with a family, I would say Little Miss Sunshine from 2006.
Yay.
Fun movie. Great cast. Greg Kinnear, Steve Carell, which this was like one of the first times we're seeing Steve Carell take a more dramatic turn. Yeah. Still in a funny film, but he plays a more dramatic character. Toni Collette, Paul Dano, Abigail Breslin, and of course, Alan Arkin won an Academy Award for the film. And and if you're not familiar, this family is trying to get their daughter, played by Abigail Breslin, across the country to the Little Miss Sunshine a pageant. Chaos ensues. We'll just leave it at that. But it's lovely. Sarah, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything you want to plug or you want to leave us with before we go?
Oh no, I'm just really thank you so much for having me. I could talk about Thelma and Louise forever and a day. I could talk about Ridley Scott films forever and a day. I think Ridley Scott starting in advertising and moving into movies. I started in advertising and moved into TV storytelling. So I've really I don't have many favorites, but he's definitely in there. So thank you so much for getting me going on my favorite topic. And yeah, just for anyone who's a writer or producer, whether you're trying to make shorts, long form movie or a TV series, I run a community called the Script Advantage Network, and you can literally just Google Script Advantage Network. It's on the school platform, SKOOL platform. So it's like a writer's room where there's 100 or so people in there already. We encourage each other. On Wednesdays, we write together in silence. I do an Ask Me Anything session once a month on a Thursday night. And it's really for you to kind of have a dedicated space to get your writing done. I kind of post interesting information, opportunities when I see jobs and call outs for writers to get involved, film festivals that don't cost much to enter and things like that. I post it in there. And just this Monday, they released all the Oscar nominated scripts. So I downloaded them all into a Google Drive, and then I just put a link in my community, and everyone's just kind of blown away. And it was sort of, whether you're a new writer or a mid-level writer, learn from the people who are doing it, learn from the people who are being nominated, see how they handle dialogue, see how they handle world building, look at what they don't say in their storytelling, just learn from the greats. So now we've got this treasure trove of scripts that are waiting for anyone to get their hands on. I'm going to read Sinners this weekend. I can't wait. So yeah, and I think One Battle After Another hasn't been released yet, and that's going to be a scramble when it is.
Yes.
Can't wait to read that. So yeah, so it's just a really nice, warm space. So check it out whenever you want. And of course, I am asantespace.org as my website, Asantespace on Insta, just all over the internet. So yeah, if you want to elevate your writing and get your pitch ready for a meeting, I'm the commissioner you see before your commissioner meeting.
Great. And we'll link that in our show notes. Okay, well, this has been Total 90s Recall. We hope you've enjoyed it. Are you going to go watch Thelma and Louise? Have you watched it recently? Let us know. You can email us if that's your thing, total90srecall@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram and tell us there at Total 90s Recall. That's Total 90s Recall. And if you're liking this, we really would love a review. 5-star reviews really help our discoverability as we're a new podcast. And tell your friend, tell the next, drugstore that you rob, tell them about Total 90s Recall. And on your next road trip, listen to Total 90s Recall. We would appreciate it. I'm Molly.
And I'm Chloe.
And we'll see you at the movies. Bye.